Here's how to make a backlight tester for LCD backlight testing for laptops. The things that you'll need is a computer case mod kit that comes with a neon tube. You have to make sure that the tube is neon or CCFL. This one here says CCFL. You don't want to get one of the LED ones because it doesn't come with the inverter unit. You need an inverter board from a laptop. It doesn't need to be working. The only thing that you need on it is the plug. And if you have a broken screen lying around, and if you're a tech shop, chances are you've got a bunch, or you throw out a bunch, so next time save them. You'll need one of these. And this is the power harness for the CCFL tube that's inside of the LCD screen. Now, I'm going to use shrink tube to put the wires together that I need to. You could use that, or you could use electrical tape. You'll need a voltage tester, and you'll need a 12 volt DC adapter. It has to be DC, and it should be generally around 1 amp. You should also have a soldering gun handy. These kits can be picked up off of eBay, very cheap. You might need a pair of scissors, depending on how the stuff is packed, and to cut the wires. Now, the parts that we're interested in are basically the switch assembly here we're going to use. So here's the power that goes into the inverter that comes with the case mod kit. That comes through the switch, comes back out over here. So this we don't need. We'll snip that off. We'll take our DC adapter and we'll cut the end off. Next, you're going to want to strip the wires. One. Two. Strip these. These are color coded, so it's easy. So we're going to plug in our AC adapter, and we're going to test it. Now you want to make sure you hold the wires apart. The wires are usually marked either with a bunch of ridges down one side or with dashed lines. It's always best to test it, because I have found some that aren't marked properly. So we know that this one here is positive, this one's negative, because we're getting a positive reading on the meter. If we swap them around, we'll have a negative reading on the meter. Now that we've done that and we know that this end is positive, what we're going to do is put these wires together with our inverter. Again, I'm going to use shrink tube. Black is going to be your negative. So here's our positive. And here's our negative wire. And once that's done, if you'd like, you can use a little bit of solder. Heat up the wire and solder it. And you could have tinned it and connected it. Take your shrink tube, slide it over, or tape up the wires. Using shrink tube, obviously the next step to do is to heat it up and melt it into place. Once that's finished, what you should have is a working case mount. You take your backlight, or I'm sorry, your neon tube, you plug it into the case mount. Plug back in your DC adapter, turn on the switch, and it should light up. That means you're ready for the next step. We'll turn this off, we'll unplug it. Now this assembly is complete. So the next thing that we want to do is snip these wires. This part here we're going to save. And what we'll do with that is we'll take our bad screen and we'll clip the wires off the backlight on the screen. We'll strip those wires. Strip the wires on the tube. Now, these wires are very different sizes. I don't think I'm going to have a piece of shrink tube that's going to fit them. So if that's the case, then we'll be taping this one. Now for this part, polarity doesn't really matter that much. We'll slide down the shrink tube. And later on I'll heat this up and seal it. So now what you have here is a unit to use to test the inverter itself. So when you open up an LCD that the backlight's not turning on, your inverter is going to be down here. It's going to be connected with the wire that we just disconnected. This is going to run in to your harness that connects to your laptop. So this will be plugged in here. This would be plugged in to your laptop to power it. So what we would do is disconnect the laptop's backlight from the inverter board, plug this in, and then turn on your laptop. And then if this lights up, you know that the inverter board's good. So that's one part of your little tool set. Now the final part, and this is the part that's a little bit more difficult. You take your broken inverter board, and what you're going to want to do, it's usually going to have a plastic shield on it. First, you want to make sure that you have an inverter board that has a standard end. Some inverter boards don't use this type of end. So, here's our socket. It should look like this. If it doesn't, it's not standard. And the plug that comes out of it should look like this. So when you finish, you'll have an assembly that'll work on most laptops. Now, sadly, the one I picked is surface mount. In this case, there's no circuits on the end of it, so I could just solder the two leads right there and leave a little bit of board that's sitting there. So here's the plug that went to the case mod tube. We're going to strip down these wires, and we're going to solder them to this connection here. Now when you're finished, you'll save some time. You'll have assembly like this. This plugs into the harness, and here's the part that you plug in the backlight of the laptop to test it. Now this was just a quick job that I put together, quick testing. What we're going to do is we're actually going to clean this up and use it. And give it to another computer shop that's in need of one of these. So here we have a nice tight connection. We'll cut some of the excess board off. I'm using special electrical tape, it's stretch tape. That over time bonds to itself. So the nice thing about that is it will become one solid piece of tape over time. So unlike electrical tape, regular electrical tape, it's not going to come apart. to use is tape the keys to stretch it as you pull it around, and then press it firmly. A couple of days, it starts bonding into itself. So there we go. We have our tester. We use this end to test inverters. We just plug that in directly into the inverter, power up the machine. This should light up if the inverter is good. Or if we need to test the backlight, we take this, we unplug the backlight from the inverter inside of the laptop, and you'll have a plug like this. You simply plug that right in. Plug in your tester, turn on the switch, and the tube inside the laptop should turn on if it's good. And that's it. So, that's all it takes to make a backlight tester and an inverter tester. This will test your inverter. This will test your backlight. Now, the one thing that it won't test is if your wiring harness is bad. Neither the inverter or the backlight will work. So if the harness that comes from the laptop is bad, it's not going to tell you that. But it will tell you if the backlight itself is bad. So if you test the backlight and that turns on, and you test the inverter and that doesn't turn on, that means that it's either the inverter or the harness. Chances are it's the inverter board. We rarely see a harness that's went bad. That's all it takes. So, for any technician, it's a good tool to have if you're working on laptops a lot. It makes it a lot easier than guesswork or ordering inverter boards and backlights to try and figure out which is the problem. Or ordering very expensive equipment to test the inverter board. And there you go.